BWARP program. Tonight, our topic is wealth impacted by the unexpected. Did you plan? And on behalf of the Los Angeles Urban League's Board of Directors and staff and Parkside Economic Development Corporation's Board of Directors and staff, we welcome you to tonight's Zoom webinar featuring attorney Andrea Van Leesten and real estate and conservator specialist Charles Butch Grimes. Tonight, you're going to hear from Andrea Van Leesten, who specializes in planning, probate and conservatorship, guardianship, and elder law. She has a BA in political science from UCLA, a JD from Georgetown University Law Center, and has certified in mediation, negotiation from Pepperdine University Law School. She's established her own business, Van Leesten Law Corp, in 1991. Attorney Van Leesten is passionate about ensuring families, individuals, and particularly seniors that have the appropriate legal protection and documents in place, along with representation to ensure proper execution and distribution of assets and benefits. Andrea is also an avid golfer and president of T Masters Golf Club. Charles Butch Grimes is a seasoned real estate broker with more than 36 years of experience specializing in probate conservatorships, trust, receiverships, and partition matters as a referee. But like me and maybe some of you in the audience, his biggest challenge has been taking care of his mom with dementia. Butch has been through many phases of the disease with his mother and has been able to share his story with others to make that may be faced with care for their loved ones in the future. The dementia and Alzheimer's has been tough, but a lot of good come from it. His team's effort by creating a 501c3 nonprofit called Who's Gonna Take Care of Me.org, focusing on Alzheimer's, dementia outreach, and education. And like Andrea, he hits a golf ball straight every once in a while himself. So let's get ready for tonight's message, the unexpected. Did you plan? If you have any questions at the end of the presentation, our virtual producer, Jacinda Moten, will make sure that they get answered during Q&A. Andrea and Butch, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with BWARP this evening.
Well, thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Parkside. Thank you, Urban League. It is an honor and a pleasure for us to be with you today. You know, wealth impacted by the unexpected. Did you plan? You know, as we spoke about this really touches home because this is a topic and an issue that touches me personally, as you said. And anytime I get an opportunity to speak alongside my colleague, Andrea Van Leesten, I'm always very excited. But you know, more than anything else, as I think about it, I always like to say, when I'm talking to a group like this, is that I'm just like you. I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm a caregiver, and I'm an advocate. So today, as we talk, this is not just about me doing a presentation, but this is something that's personal. It's personal because I dealt with it and I'm still dealing with it. And I'll be dealing with it for a while because I never forgot. There are a couple words that the doctor told me. It will be a journey. So get ready. And today I just want to talk about life. You know, most people have a plan and expectations of their life. You know, they want to, as we're kids and we grow up and we want to have a successful career, we go to college, we get an education, we have we may get married, and we have that wonderful family that we look forward to being involved with for the rest of our lives. But at the end of the day, what do we enjoy most? We enjoy most about being happy, living our best life. And that's what we want to talk a little bit about today, is living our best life. But what happens when you live your best life and it's turned upside down? All of a sudden you look up one day, you have this wonderful life, you're working, you're successful, and then what happens? Something tragic hits you. And guess what? Now you're saying, what do I do? What do I do next? And especially when it happens to someone in your family that you're close to. And that's what happened to me. And I want to ask you a question. Let's talk a little bit about potential unexpecteds. Let's talk about a disease that may be unexpected, that may affect you, that you don't even think about. The question is, by 2023, 1 out of 3 folks over the age of 80 will potentially get this disease. What do you think that is? This particular disease may also bankrupt your family, bankrupt you. What do you think that is? It also can splinter your family. I want you to think about it. And I'm saying that because this happened to me. And what is that disease? It's called dementia. It's called Alzheimer's. You know, back in the day, we didn't have a formal word for it because, you know, folks would say, where's your aunt? Where's your mother? Oh, she's in the back room watching TV. We didn't have a word. Now we do. It's called dementia, or as we say, Alzheimer's. And most people will ask me, what's the difference? And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. Well, what is Alzheimer's? It's a disease that attacks the brain. Abnormal proteins in the memory, the plaque, it progressively gets worse. And it is an umbrella term for Alzheimer's because there are more than one dementia. Hard facts, over 6.2 million Americans have dementia. 1.9 over the age of 65, 1.3 over the age of 85, and 2/3 are women. 2/3. I'm going to come back to that fact because I think that's really important in this presentation. And I don't want to bore you with a lot of statistics, but I want you to really realize and get the feel how this disease can really impact you emotionally, physically, as well as financially. Every 67 seconds, somebody gets dementia. And by 2050, every 33 seconds, somebody will get dementia. Most people don't think about it. They don't understand. And they're really not prepared to be caregivers. And you say, caregivers? Yeah, caregivers. And it can happen overnight. I don't think there's anybody that I don't know that knows somebody out there that is becoming a caregiver. The roles are reversed. They're in reverse now because with our parents getting older, we living longer, we now have to take on the role sometimes now as the parent, and we have to watch over our loved ones, our mothers, our fathers. So where does the journey begin? You know, most people always ask me, I mean, when you hear a lot of presentations or you hear presentations about dementia, they tell you about all the statistics and what happens and so on, but not a lot of folks talk about the journey. And I think that's most important because most of you, if you deal with somebody with it, you have to be ready for this situation. So the first thing you really have to do is evaluate your situation because most people don't know what it looks like. I didn't know what it looks like. My brother is the one that said, you need to check out our mom. I think she's acting a little strange. I was so close to it, I didn't realize anything was really happening.
And this is Andrea Van Leesten. And as I said, or as Gerald announced, I'm a trust and estates attorney. And I have brought with me a real life client and case history who's sitting right next to me, telling me about his journey. I also represented his mom. And this is where I really want to talk about the traditional documents, your trust, your declaration of trust, your durable power of attorney for healthcare, your pour over will, and your power of attorney for assets. And so I said to Butch, I said, I'm part of your team, and I don't think you really understand what's happening here. I don't really understand that you know that we need to pull a team together. His brother informed him, I informed him. But the most difficult thing for Butch to understand is because he was so close to his mother and his finances, his mother's finances, they were doing well. They had done everything correctly. They had planned as they should have. All of their documents were in order. Their property was transferred into their trust. We had closed all the loops. But unfortunately, my friend, Butch Grimes here, was in denial that this was currently taking place. So you really do have to evaluate your situation and you have to get your team together. The most important thing that you have to do is protect your loved one. So you have to have a plan for her. So there are all different kinds of plans that people have for their family. And we look at some really basic ones. So you really want to protect your wealth. And you say, well, we don't have any caregivers. We don't have any family. So initially, you leave your mom at home. And that's what Butch did. He stayed at home. He tried to watch his mother while he worked. We used to call him, and that was a disaster for him. And it was hard for him because he loved his mother, was very loyal to his mother, and he did not want to leave her. So many of you out there might say, wow, what would I do? So you have to do some planning with the documents and the tools that hopefully you have seen your professional advisor for. You have to look at your durable power of attorney for healthcare. Do you have the power to make your mother's healthcare decisions? Because I'm not the one to call after your mother has no capacity to say, I need to have a document notarized really quickly. We can't do that. So I want Butch to continue with his journey.
And you know, and what Andrea said is so true, and it's real, because all hands must be on deck. And I think the key to tonight's presentation is we want to make sure that each and every one of you understand that everybody's not going to work the same. Every family's not going to function the same. We hear so many situations in the court, outside of court, within families where you may have a large family, but you know what? It may be one person that actually steps up to the plate and makes sure and sees to their loved one being taken care of. So you really have to buckle up, get ready for that journey. And if you're not ready to buckle up and get ready for that journey, I want to give you some hard facts. I said I would never put my mother in a facility. However, one person can never take care of a loved one by themselves with dementia.
24/7.
24/7. And Andrea knows, because there were many, many nights when I was looking up at the ceiling saying, what the heck happened? I don't know what I did or what went wrong, but I've never experienced this. And I would hope no one would experience it as well. But we didn't have presentations like this. We had an OJT. It was immediate. And when it happens fast. So here's some facts. Adult daycare services are $80 per day.
For how many hours?
8 hours. That means that you're dropping them off and you're picking them up at the end of the day after your work day. $80 per day. Assisted living facilities, $46.35 is the median in 2022. Of course, $55,620 in for a year. And if you want them to have a private room, we're talking $306 a day at $111,657 a year. And you want a private, I mean, a semi-private, of course, it's a little cheaper, $268 per day. Why did I put these up? Because I remember when my mom came out of the facility after going in for a UTI, a urinary tract infection, which is like the bubonic plague to a senior.
Shouldn't need to do anything but just
This is where
come up and transfer it to your wallet.
This is where they wanted to send her. The insurance said, oh yeah, we have some facilities, but these are the ones that we've selected and you can check them out. And the pictures I'm showing you here are what they look like. Some of the ones, I'm not saying they're all, don't get me wrong, but the ones that I saw, these are some of the issues that I was dealing with. Somebody's going to be a caregiver. One out of 6, as it says here, non-caregivers are expected to become caregivers within 2 years. So what happens? We have to have a plan. And we don't talk about it, especially in the African-American community, because we find that it is a cultural thing. In the Latino and African-American communities, we tend to be a little more private. We don't want all our friends to know. And there's a lot of denial. And I think sessions like this is so important because this opens up that dialogue for us to really get it out there and talk about your working life, your retirement, your family life, and your team. Because if I didn't have someone like Andrea and Dr. Rue, I don't know what I've done. So where do we start?
So along with Alzheimer's, as well as dementia, let me say this, let's add cancer to that list. Let's add a stroke to that list. Let's add a catastrophic car accident. Any of these catastrophes in your life can impact your wealth. And your team needs to get together. Your family needs to get together. What does your trust say? Who is in charge? Who is your successor trustee? Do you have long-term care? Do you have a durable power of attorney for healthcare for someone who can make those decisions and take care of that with the doctor? Do you have your power of attorney for your assets? And they can only go so far. They have their limitations. And again, if your trust was thoroughly prepared, as well as all of the banking powers of attorney, you might be home free. But to minimize the impact that it has on your wealth or your loved one's wealth, you have to look at how to minimize that. Who's going to jump in and do that caregiving, which will help reduce some of the costs? I think that's so important. I just was speaking with a client a few days ago. That client has what I call non-cooperative and walk-away dementia. And what does that mean? It means that if I leave that parent at home alone, I have to pull off all of the knobs, I have to deadbolt lock her in there, and I have to call all the time to make certain that that loved one has not done anything to harm themselves. Or if the door is open, they'll walk away and they don't want to stay where they're going to be safe. And I'm sure you've heard all the time, can you find my father? Can you find my mother? I have had a couple of clients, their father got in the car because the clients too were in denial, and their father drove until his car ran out. And he ended up down in a ditch in San Bernardino when they finally found him. And Butch has stories like that as well of other friends. Their parents have dementia, and if you're not paying attention, they walk away and it's impossible to get them back. And if you do get them back, they'll fight you. They don't want to stay put in a facility. And in those situations, you are truly between a rock and a hard place. But some of the things that you have to consider if you're also trying to keep your family well, and as well as if you're trying to keep as many funds and resources so that your loved one gets the proper care and the long-term care, you really have to do the numbers. You really have to count it out. And somebody says, well, we'll just go on Medi-Cal. Well, Butch and I have some horror stories to tell you. The Who's Going to Take Care of Me Foundation, one of the things that we do every year is to pack up diapers and to pack up scarves and all kind of goodies for caregivers and for the residents and the disabled themselves. And why is that? Because if you are on Medi-Cal thinking that you're going to hold on to your family's wealth by either hiding the assets or getting one of those Medicaid trusts so that you can preserve your family wealth, and you put your family member on Medi-Cal, well, let me tell you this, they give you approximately 3 diapers a day. And that was why we always brought diapers and those types of supplies to help the facility, just to give the residents as many diapers. And this may make you uncomfortable thinking about diapers and wipes and things of that nature. And we're not talking about a baby, but we're talking about what they need. So everyone, you need to rely on your team. And I don't think you need to consider the downfalls of the Medicaid trust. But if you do, you're going to have to be that supplemental person at the facility. You need to always talk to your doctor. You need to talk to your family. You need to talk to your lawyer, your CPA, your insurance professional to find out what you do have, and your real estate professional. And Butch is a real estate professional. And I always talk to him about, well, what do you think we can get for a piece of property? Should we do a reverse mortgage? Will that give the senior the money that they need? That's important to have those individuals on your team. So I hope you have a team to talk to and to take advice from.
The other part of it is, and I'm very transparent only because I think it's important for our community and for the people listening tonight. I pay $7,000 a month to house my mom. $7,000. That's not insurance. That's not assistance from anybody. That's hard-earned cash that my brother and I make sure that we take care of. Why? Because we want the best for her. She gave us the best. So we have to do the same. But we have countless stories where a loved one or a brother and a sister, one or the other doesn't want to cooperate. And guess what? One may take the mother to the bank and withdraw all the money. And then you look up and now you have a fight on your hands and you have this poor individual who is helpless and doesn't have anyone to turn to.
And then they're on Medicaid and you abandon them by not going to the facility and bringing them the supplies that Medi-Cal does not provide. Medi-Cal has changed. So I want you to really know that when you think, oh, we'll just get them in a Medicaid trust. No, you don't want to do that. So what are your circumstances? Are you a single person? Can you afford to do this? Or is this going to happen to you? Have you had a catastrophic car accident? Or do you have some disease looming in the background that you have not made your family aware? Are you a traditional couple, a husband and wife with a couple of children? Have you sat down and spoken to them about your situation? Or have you planned for your situation knowing that you have minor children or teenage children? Or are you a non-traditional or an unmarried couple, same-sex couple, or married or not married? Because if you're a same-sex couple, you may have a domestic partnership. What is your situation? Do you have aging parents or aging other family members, an aunt, that cousin that you like so much? You have to think about them as well. What will happen to them? Are they single? Do they have anyone else? Please look after them because you don't want to leave them to the County of Los Angeles and the county's public administrator, because the public administrator or the public guardian, which is the county's version of someone taking care of you. The public guardian is the person who will come in and take care of you, take all of your assets at your request, or they will put you in a Medi-Cal facility. You don't want to do that to a loved one. And if you're not prepared If you've not planned and you fail to plan because you say, oh, just whatever happens to me. And if your kids don't want your wealth and you're going to use all your wealth for your care, that's fantastic. But if your kids are expecting that, your kids need to get in and help. If you personally are not prepared, not if you're single, not if you're a couple, not if you're a non-traditional couple, or any of the other variations that I spoke about, if you're not prepared, you will be seeking relief in the Superior Court in your particular county. In Los Angeles County, as I said, it is the public guardian who you will be petitioning to help take care of you. Or if it's not the public guardian, it will be that family member. The family members I have seen who have fought for their families and loved ones in the conservatorship court, it just creates a big bill and eats it all up.
And think about this. Ask yourself this question. Who's going to take care of me? When you ask yourself that question, it really gets you to think.
And the last thing I want to leave you with too is we heard somebody say this just before they left their spouse or their disabled child. I did not sign up for this. And you don't know what life signed you up for. That's where I ask you to have your tools and to talk with your professional team so that you impact your impacted wealth is minimized tonight.
Talk about it. Now's the time to ask those questions. And now's the time to get it all out. Let's do what we have to.
All righty, you all. We're now going to begin the Q&A portion of the workshop. If you can please post your questions into the chat or the Q&A prompt. And I will go one by one. Are there any questions? Okay, I see some people they're waiting to type something.
Well, I think that's great. And while people are waiting to ask us questions, it's just really important to get your own documents in order. It really is, regardless of your circumstances. If you fail to plan, the state of California has a plan for you, and I don't think you're going to like it. So please make your own plans. Please consult your professionals. Please see your doctor. Please check your health. And strokes, they are unexpected. And car accidents, they come out of nowhere as well.
All righty, we got some questions coming in. All right, so our first one is, what are those things that we need to do to get ready? I guess, what's that checklist, a basic checklist that they need?
A basic checklist from my standpoint is you need to see your doctor to see how your health is. Secondly, you need to see your attorney. You need to have either a basic will, but the most important document that every person needs to have, and I need to stress that, the most important document, if you have nothing else, is a durable power of attorney for healthcare. You need to have that because that is the first thing that someone says, who's in charge of this body? So you need that, and you need your durable power of attorney for assets, and you need to have your banking in order so that someone can utilize your funds to take care of you.
And to add to that checklist, you have to put aside all the issues that you guys may have had as a family. This is where the family really needs to step it up. You know, fortunately, in my case, unlike so many that we hear of, my brother and I are very close. And because we're very close, it was just an easy transition for us to make that move. I mean, I'm so lucky to have him because he's a godsend. The point is, we had no issue. It didn't matter about who was going to pay for what, money. We want our mother to have the best we can have, and we can provide her, and we did. And so I always stress to everyone in this situation, because the one thing about it is it's going to come fast and it will surprise you because it will sneak up on you before you know it. You will look up and you're in the throes of it. So if you don't have these conversations early, and I want to say that early, because I tell folks all the time, stop being scared to talk to your family members, your loved one, your mom, your dad, about their affairs. You need to talk to them. When they go to the doctor, go into the doctor with them. Talk to the doctor and see what's going on. Because if somebody's got a slight bit of dementia, you think she's gonna or he's gonna remember to come out and tell you what the doctor said? No. Step up and make sure you guys come together.
All right, and that's a good segue to a lot of questions that I'm getting about trust, and I'm going to try to condense this. So expand on the purpose of a trust, the average cost of a living trust, and where can you get a trust established?
So a living trust basically says that you are the person. You're called a trustor or a settlor, meaning you are the giver, the trustor, the person who's going to settle your assets. Think about a trust as a candy jar. It's physically an empty candy jar. So then an attorney drafts a document called a declaration of trust. Then you are the trustee. You're going to transfer those assets into the trust. That is, you're going to retitle. If you have a piece of real property, you're going to retitle it. And I'll use my name, Andrea Van Leesten, successor trustee of the Andrea Van Leesten Trust. The name of that candy dish is the Andrea Van Leesten Trust. I'm going to put my real property in that trust. I'm also going to put my financial assets in that trust, and anything else that I have of value, stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, anything that I can liquidate. And you establish it with your attorney. It is not a document that is filed anywhere. It is a private document, and you do not share it until it's time, because you don't want family members to know what you're leaving them or not leaving them, but it's important for you to establish it. There are no sister and brother trusts. You cannot do that. There are only husband and wife trusts, or single trust, or same sex or opposite sex couples who are married, or domestic partnership who are married under California law.
All righty. And do you know the average cost of a living trust?
It depends. Now, I personally don't use a paralegal because I have fixed paralegal-based trusts. Those paralegal-based trusts can be any place from $400, $500, $850 to trust for other people that I've seen, other practitioners. They usually charge about $7,500 up to $10,000. The average cost, I would say, would be about $3,000, $2,500.
Okay.
Let me say one last thing. The reason you don't want to use a paralegal is if you need to testify on behalf, it is always a lawyer who can make the testimony. It is not the paralegal. I testified last month in a trust that I wrote where the successor trustee, one of them, took all of the trustor's assets as she took care of her, and the beneficiaries had to fight. It is a lawyer who has to testify, not a paralegal.
All righty. Our next question is, what can you do, if anything, if the person is already ill? So,
there are a lot of things that you can do. I don't know how ill the person is.
Right.
An illness is different than if the person has cancer, they may have capacity. It's when they have a brain-oriented a type of illness, like dementia, that shows that they have capacity. If somebody comes in and they're looking all around, or they're giggling, I'm not gonna notarize their documents because they don't have capacity. So it depends upon, they can be ill, but they have to have capacity. A person can have a will with minimal capacity as long as they know three things: who they are, who their family is, the nature of their bounds, and what they have. And they can sign their names and people can witness it. They can always have a will minimally, a durable power of attorney for healthcare, which can also be witnessed by two individuals. I, as a notary, always notarize my documents, but a power of attorney for healthcare can be witnessed by two individuals, as long as that person knows what they're signing.
And that's why it's important that we start paying attention early. A lot of times, people wait too late. It's too late. And by the time they look up, then they want to try to do something, because most of them are in denial. And most people that are in denial for a while. But by then, that person potentially has already hurt themselves. There's a family member that's taking advantage of them. So there's a number of things that go with that. And that's why I'm just saying, you have to pay attention. So if you start seeing those little things, I lost my keys. I mean, some of my employees lose their keys weekly. So I start wondering if they have dementia. But the point is, it's those little things that will get you in trouble, because you wait too late till it happens.
Or if they pick up those keys and they go, what are these and what are they for?
There you go.
Then you're in trouble.
Right.
Or I've been with other clients in a facility, and I've seen their tongue come out of their mouth and not go back, which means that they have some type of disease which will prevent them from eating, having nourishment, which changes the health of an individual. So watch the changes in someone's health. That's very, very important. It can happen to the best of us.
Right.
Yes, yes. And this question is for you, Butch. You mentioned that there's a difference between dementia and Alzheimer's. Can you expound on that?
Well, Andrea kind of touched on it, and I always use the simple example. Dementia is, I lost my keys. Alzheimer's is, what do I do with this key?
Okay.
You don't understand what it really does. You know, there are a number of dementias. You've heard of Parkinson's, Lewy bodies, and so on. Vascular dementia, which especially in our community with high blood pressure and diabetes and so on. These are the things.
It looks like they're frozen for a second.
Things that when your doctor is saying you got to get extra, try to mitigate that problem by doing the right things now, so it doesn't catch up with us later.
And the best thing is when your mother looks at you and says, who are you? That's the one that's most hurtful to my clients. They don't recognize you any longer, or they forget your name. And not that, you know, a parent has so many children, they call them, there's like, who are you? Are you my sister, friend, or whatever?
But I do want to stress, if you don't take anything from this tonight, there's one key point that I try, especially men. 2/3 of the folks with dementia are women. Men really have to step it up and prepare themselves, because it's a tough, long road. And you know, we as men are the head of the family. We're tough, we're rough, we're football players, we did all those things. But now you got to take care of your loved one. I've been in a lot of situations, but taking care of my mother, because I'm just going to leave this one. How do I change my mother's underwear? Man.
Or how do I wash her?
That was tough for me. So men, we got to get ready. I had a support group here in my office one evening, and I had about 25 men in here. And I must say, I don't think there was a dry eye in the room, because this was such a tough situation. These men realized they were in for a battle.
And speaking of support groups, one person has a question. Are there any websites for support groups?
Well, there are a number of support groups out there. I know the Alzheimer's Association does have support groups. We sponsor support groups that here, who's going to take care of me? And we're in the community. So as a nonprofit in our community, we're based in the community and we're dealing with people in our community. So we do understand it a little better. But you just have to keep in touch with us and we can let you know when there's available.
And your doctor is a good resource, depending upon what it is that the person has been diagnosed with, if it's cancer, if it's any other type of diseases. Your doctor is your best resource. That's part of that team that I suggested early. You ask your doctor, who would you refer me to? Should I seek out the Cancer Association? Should I seek out the Diabetes Foundation? You know, I know that if any of you are football fans, Deion Sanders, who took on the role of being the football coach at Jackson State, he just had his 2 toes cut off his foot and everybody was shocked, you know, but he had blood clots. And so it's different things. It's not always Alzheimer's, it's those kinds of things. So, you know, now he has to learn how to have, you know, therapy for that reason. So it's different. Check with your physician as well.
Our next question is, what does a single person with no close relatives or trusted friends do in terms of identifying someone to fulfill the role of a successor, trustee, power of attorney for assets, et cetera?
Well, you know, I have several single friends, male and females. And so I don't know, there are a lot of things. First of all, you have to take a hard look at who will you trust of those who you trust. So you have levels of trust. So who of those will you trust? And I always talk about pairing people, like take 2 people that are trusted and pair them together. First of all, I don't want anyone to make me their successor trustee. I have been the successor trustee. I have been fiduciaries. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of responsibility. And there are fiduciaries. I mean, I work with private fiduciaries who will take care of your person. But again, that's expensive. So you have to decide as a single person, what 2 of my non-trusted friends can I pair together and put them together to take care of these and have a conversation. And maybe you need to bring both of those individuals in to speak with your attorney as well, so that you all get a sense of what needs to be done. And better to do it when you're not ill, but if you're ill, you need to do it rapidly and in your lawyer's presence.
All right, our next question is, now, do you have to get a trust in the state that you live in, or can you get it prepared in a cheaper state?
Well, it needs to be, in my opinion,
Cheaper state.
yeah, in my opinion, you need to have it done here in California by someone familiar with California law. Our laws protect us. I'm not getting an Alabama trust to protect me here in California. I'm gonna just tell that to you now. I don't care how cheap it is. You get what you pay for. And if you don't know the law in California, if you don't know about our Medi-Cal laws, and Alabama has different Medicaid laws, so you really don't want to mix apples and eggplants. You really don't. It's not even a fruit anymore.
Do they have eggplants in Alabama?
Yeah, they do. But you don't want to do that because you need someone familiar. And whenever I work with others, I don't do trust for other individuals who are not California residents, because you need to be a California resident, because you need to abide by California law. So how would somebody write you something and it's under Alabama law and you live in California? It doesn't make sense.
Yes. Oh, here's another great question. Do you offer special needs trust where the child has mental illness?
Well, it's a special needs trust when they are developmentally disabled, and if they have been declared that, or you can do that, or you have that trusted friend who will act as a fiduciary at your request, and it depends. But yes, special needs trusts are a part of an adult estate plan. Again, you need a California lawyer, because if they're not done correctly, they won't be able to retain their Medi-Cal benefits. That disabled child or that medically necessary child is probably on SSI or Medi-Cal. So yes, they would need a special needs trust.
All righty. I'm just responding to certain messages right now, questions.
Bring them on while you got us. While you got us, bring them on.
Yes. What are some considerations for people who are caretaking and still raising young children? Suggestions for how to begin these conversations with hesitant parents?
Yes, that was part of the first technical seminars I used to give a long time ago. They have a term for those. They're called the sandwich generation. The sandwich generation is sandwiched between their parents and their children. They are special, and their parents have to be a part of the conversation. And their obligation, they're torn because the obligation is to their children who really need them, and their parents as well. They have children on either side. They are my most serious clients because they themselves need some respite care themselves. And you start that conversation. A lot of times families will come in, the parents and their children, not the grandchildren. And we talk about them being in there. What have they done and what have they planned for their children? And the other thing is what happens to their parents and their children if something happens to them and they're killed in a car accident. You know, we see that, or one or two of them. Or the other thing that we didn't talk about is what happens to couples when couples are dependent upon two incomes. The death of the spouse, the first spouse, takes away one of those incomes. And how can you supplement that? Do you have insurance? Do you have enough retirement? Do you have enough savings? Will you have to downsize? Will you have to sell that house? So those are the conversations that are real. Can you live off of one income? A single person already does that, but a couple, they're kind of spoiled. Some couples don't. Some couples live off of, 1.5 incomes. So that's something that we talk about in the planning stages. That's a way to hold on to your wealth as well, is to really try to live on one of those incomes or put it away for rainy days for the kids or whatever is coming up in the future, and keep those bills kind of paid down too. Creditors call me. Where's my payment on that American Express card? Where's that car payment? You want to pay those cars off. If you need that car, pay it off.
And speaking of savings, this leads us to our next question. How much money should the elderly set aside for senior health issues?
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one because it's going to depend on the circumstance.
And the illness.
And the illness, like exactly is what we were talking about. That's why I wanted to show you those numbers, because those numbers are actually moderate. I've seen costs as high as $18,000 a month. A month. And these facilities are not far, and they're far and few between in our community, just to let you know that. They're not, on every other street or in our particular communities. They are minimal. The further you get out of Los Angeles, the cost tends to be a little less. But $4,000, that is the bare bone, because you're talking seven. Now, like in my case, my mother is in a Title 22, which is a small 5-person facility. It's a home.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted her in something that was more personal, and I knew she was going to get great care, which she does. But as Andrea said, when we started, who's going to take care of me? And we started going to some of these facilities that we knew were needing this help. The staffing is low. When they're supposed to at least have three employees per shift, 8-hour shift. Sometimes when somebody calls in sick, they have 1 or 2, even though they're supposed to have 3. So now your loved one is in a risk. That's why it's better sometimes to keep them at home. But the problem is, can you afford to keep them at home?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I want to say about that is I know so many people when they need a job, the quickest segment, I think, is, especially if you're unskilled, is to get a minimum wage job in a facility. It is frightening to me. I've asked a lot of young people, what do you do? Oh, I work in a healthcare facility, or I work in a group home. they have just high school educations. They don't really have a lot of experience. They don't have a lot of training or anything. And so what do I suggest for an elderly person in terms of their savings? I suggest that they take what they have saved and go to a health and wellness center and see a health and wellness physician and see if they can get themselves on track with maximum health. Who doesn't like candy? Give up candy. You've had a whole lifetime of eating candy, a lot of fried stuff, you need to clean your diet up. You need to get as healthy as you can, because one of the reasons I would not want to go to a facility is I like to eat well. I want some fresh greens. I want some fresh food. I can't eat all the fried fish and stuff I used to eat. And don't think I don't love it, but my body says,
Oh, looks like they got frozen again. Give it some more time.
it's enough already. So change your way.
We're good.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Our next question is, what are your thoughts on purchasing long-term care insurance to help cover the expenses related to dementia or long-term illness?
Oh, boy, that's a good one.
You want to start? Or you want me to start?
Go for it, and I'll chime in.
So here's the, it depends. So if you're going to start with long-term care, you need to start early because it's extremely expensive.
Right.
And then once you kick in for long-term care, once you have a good policy, what does it provide for? Some policies provide for 2 years of care,
Right.
3 years of care, 5 years of care. And what the policy really does is it tries to bond around the amount of assets that you have so that you have those assets when you need them at the end of your life. Secondly, they're expensive. You're paying a monthly premium. And now they have these policies, if you can buy them, which are kind of a whole life with a long-term care wrap into it. They're called hybrid insurance policy. A few companies have them. I know Vermont Life has one of those. So you have to qualify. But the thing is, with some of these policies, you have to be in good health to go into them before you can buy them. You can't be like, oh, I got cancer, let me run and get it.
Right.
Because at that point, they want you to give them some information. So your policy is expensive. You need to do it now, like in your 30s or in your 40s, and you say, oh, or you buy a piece of real estate. And I've had
Let's give them some more time. Wi-Fi.
So Jacinda, this is Reverend Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
While we're waiting on their signal to come back, as I said earlier, I had the same situation that Bush is going through now. And I was fortunate that my mom had 2 long-term care policies. And what Andrew was about to mention, real estate. She also owned some real estate that I was able to rent out to supplement the cost along with those 2 long-term care policies. But the long-term care policies, as Andrew said, you want to get those while you're young and in good shape, but they do have limits to them, and they make sure that you're sick or on your deathbed before they allow you to use them. You have to be in a certain situation before you can even use them, and then they're limited sometimes by years, or they're limited by the amount of money per month or per week that you can spend with those long-term care policies. But they are an asset that you should have. But again, Andrea started on the real estate tip, and that is a great asset that you can have. If you have some real estate that's being rented out with some income or something that you can even sell if necessary to put the money aside to take care of your parents, that's a good thing. The other thing I wanted to point out to those of you who are a senior or getting close to being a senior and you do not have a trust, you do not have the documents in place, you don't want to leave it up to your children or your sisters or your brothers. because my daughter went to law school and she gonna take care of everything. Trust me, you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you decide what you want to happen and you put it in a legal document, and particularly here in the state of California, to make sure it's executed in the way you want, because your kids are not going to all agree on what's best for you. And some of them, one of them is going to only be thinking about what's best for them. And it will be a nightmare. As a reverend, I've done many services where I've seen relatives fight over costume jewelry earrings, trust me, in the church. So you don't want to leave it up to your children. You want to do what you can to outline how you want things to go, and make sure that it's done properly. And you need a attorney, a trust attorney here in California to do that. Okay, I'm done.
Can you hear us?
All right, thank you, Reverend Gerald. That was great. You guys are back.
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden it just dropped off.
Yeah.
And many of you all asked about the recording. It will be available. The Urban League will be emailing everyone once it's available on the website and their YouTube channel.
All
And,
right,
all right, Charles.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So what I was saying real quickly is that I was talking about long-term care. There have been situations where, and I know this for a fact, we have to be careful to what we have, because, give me an example. There was a situation where there was a family that was in the same facility as my mother. And they had a talk, the husband and wife, and she said, honey, we're going to get this long-term care. How long do you think we should get? And he said, why don't we get, 5 years is enough. If something happens to me or you, 5 years is more than enough, and we'll be fine. Well, guess what? He lived 8 years. She had to liquidate all of her assets, her home, and scrape to try to keep those last 3 years, to keep him in that facility, because that long-term care plan only was for 5, and he outlasted that 5-year plan.
That's why I say, work on your health. Take some of that money now and work on your health, or buy that piece of real estate, or buy that annuity or something that is going to provide income to you for that reason.
All righty. Our next question is, you guys touched on it before about the importance of having these conversations, but do you have any specific tips to encourage your aging parents to complete these important documents when they keep delaying them to fill them out?
you lose them again?
Again, yes.
Yeah.
Want to join back in, Reverend Gerald?
Yeah, when it comes to that, that's another issue. Nobody wants to plan for their transition. And we have a lot of our seniors who don't want to have the conversation. I have personal friends and family members who have high net worth, own several properties, houses, cars, own businesses. They do not want to have that conversation. That's a very difficult thing. So all I can say is, their doctors, their pastors are people that they respect and admire. You can try to, have a conversation with them and have them help you get them to understand that the easiest way to start trouble in the family and to get the kids and grandkids fighting amongst each other is to do nothing.
I think that's a lawyer's delight, Gerald. We love it when the family comes in there, because that's more money in our pockets. I want everyone to know that.
Yeah.
And so I've been in mediation with a lot of family members, and that's the same thing. The senior says themselves, they're part of the problem. I don't want to do this. I don't care. You guys fight it out among you. And they do. And as I say to the kids, can I get you at least to agree? Or how many are for and how many against? I kind of organize them. Or I have these situations right now
with a parent who's a walk away. I can't do anything about that. That parent is out there. If that parent takes that car and hits somebody, then the whole estate is in trouble.
Mm.
That's what happens. I mean, it's like anything else. I can't make people get a vaccination. I can't make people eat. I can't make people do that. But when they don't, we have the tools to help the family from there. Unfortunately, it may be costly. And if you've ever noticed, when you put somebody in a facility, have you ever noticed that they're a little more drugged up? So they give them a little bit more drugs when you're in a facility. I mean, a big facility, because that kind of keeps you kind of muted, kind of quiet, kind of sleepy. And when you go in there, isn't everybody in the bed? If they're not in the bed, they're in wheelchairs. It's not like they're out trying to get parents to walk up and down the hallways and be active and thriving. No, they give you these drugs, these Aricept and things of that nature, not just to calm you down, but to mute you. And your loved one goes on mute. So that's another reason why I'd like to see family members stay at home. Would you agree, Butch? Did you see how they muted them? When we go to those facilities, a lot of the seniors are so happy to see us because we're alive and we bring it to life, and they start singing and then they go down again.
There have been statistics that show keeping your loved one at home is much better. They're familiar with that place. When they're in a facility, and in so many cases, falls are prevalent. You always hear about somebody falling or falling out of the bed. Believe it or not, falling out of the bed is very prevalent. So that's where the injuries really come in. We've heard so many situations where they rolled out of the bed and they hit their head on the headboard, on the nightstand. And that's where the issue is. But you also have to realize it is quite expensive. Either way, it's going to be expensive. I don't want to give you this. I don't want to make you think that it's going to be inexpensive by no means. That's the reason why you have to plan early. So while we're out here having a great time and we're hanging out at the concert and we're getting that brand new boat, I shouldn't say that. I got a boat, so I love fishing. But you know what? That's my way of being able to have some peace of mind, because I'm going to tell you, if you don't do something to take care of yourself, the caregiver sometimes goes before the cared for. So you have to be conscious of that.
Yes, yes. Now, our next question is, if you don't have long-term insurance, what is the average cost of long-term care? This individual was turned down twice for long-term care.
True. You have to be healthy. Like I just said, you have to be healthy. But they will always give you insurance, but at what cost? Like $1,000 a month? That's ridiculous. You could put that $1,000 a month in the bank or put it toward a property. What do you think?
You think about even the people on this line. I bet if we took a poll right now, who has long-term care? Probably no one, because it's not something we think about.
But who has long-term health? Who plans to have good health? Who does those things? Who does exercise? Who does follow what your doctor says do? Who does that? I don't have long-term care, but I have other backup plans.
So when you get off this webinar tonight, and you think I'm going to stop here and get this hamburger, think about what we said. Take the salad instead.
Yes, health is wealth.
Defender, you're looking guilty.
I mean, hey. Our next question is, just briefly, can you touch on the piece about real estate?
Which part?
So you said a source of income in place of long-term care?
As a revenue stream, Butch.
Revenue stream, yes.
Okay, so if you start saving to buy a piece of real estate, and you know what? Now that's where you can buy those pieces of Alabama real estate. If you can buy cheap real estate other places and have a stream of income, Buy some real estate, start small, get a duplex. It doesn't have to be here in Los Angeles, unaffordable County, California. It could be any place, and start getting that stream of income.
But what I would like to say though, is if you have real estate, keep it, maintain it, retain it, because that was part of our session tonight, retention. We have to stop giving away our properties, because if something happens tomorrow, that real estate may be your lifeline to get you through whatever you're going to end up going through.
Yes, yes. And we're going to have one last question. Is a conservator the same as a fiduciary?
Yes and no. A conservator is appointed by the court. The court appoints you, just like everybody's familiar now with Britney Spears, and everyone always asks me about Britney Spears or the Anna, whatchamacallit, that was just freed, Amanda Burns, who was just freed in Ventura County. She was in another county. Her parents or her father, they were a court-appointed conservator. Just like if you're an executor, you can only be an executor if you're court-appointed. It's a proceeding. If you are a fiduciary could be a bank. A bank is a fiduciary of your money. A fiduciary is also a person who has a certain experience and who's licensed in the state of California and who is bonded, usually by Lloyd's of London, and they handle your money just like a bank would. They look at your money, they use it for you, they pay themselves an agreed upon fee, and they take care of it. So a fiduciary could take care of you if you don't want a court-appointed conservator, a conservator of the estate, conservator of the person. You can split them. One could take care of you, and then somebody else is managing your money. The person who's managing your money doesn't have to be the person who is the conservator of the person or who is taking care of you, the caregiver. They can be two separate positions.
All righty. Charles, did you want to add something?
Nope.
No, okay. All righty. All righty. Well, thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insight. I'm sure it will be greatly used and thought of while people put things into action to have these conversations with their loved ones.
I thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. This is a passion for me. I love to spread the knowledge because it's important, especially for folks in my community that they take care of themselves, they take care of their families. And thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate you as well.
And I the same, because the one thing about it, especially as I said earlier, when I get a chance to speak with my esteemed colleague, I'm really excited. But I'm also more excited because dementia is such a major issue of our community, and we don't talk enough about it. We have to have these conversations more and more, because there are a lot of people out there with it. And somebody that you walk outside and see every day may be suffering with it and you don't even realize it. So we got to educate each other and we got to protect each other. So thank you very much for doing this.
And we leave you with our theme. Who's going to take care of me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Andrea Van Leesten and Charles Butch Grimes, for sharing your experiences and your knowledge with us this evening. And before I turn it over to Michael Lawson, President and CEO of the Urban League, for final remarks, I just want to encourage all of you and remind all of you to do two things. One is to tell all of your friends and associates and family members about the BWARP series that's going on every second and fourth Wednesday, March, April, and May. Have them register and sign up. A lot of our questions were about real estate and how we can use that as an asset to take care of ourselves when we get older. And our next session on April 13th features James Bird and Reggie Brooks, who are two African-American, and when I say real estate moguls, I mean real estate moguls. And they're going to talk to you about how to build legacy wealth with real estate. So when you do get older and need that long-term care and want to stay at home, you'll have assets as I was fortunate for my mom to have, where she could have 24-hour care right here in my home. And she spent her last 12 years resting right here, being taken care of hand and foot every day. She lived like a wealthy person. She had to do nothing for herself. And we want all of you to be in that same situation. So thank you again for being with us this evening. Tell all your friends about BWARP. Have them log on to laul.org/BWARP and register for our upcoming events. And now I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, President and CEO of the Los Angeles Urban League, Mr. Michael Lawson, for closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Reverend. This was an outstanding session. I've learned so much from this, and just have to relook at everything that we're doing. And we trust that you enjoyed this evening's presentation on Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program as well. And thank you for attending. And thank you, Attorney Andrea Van Leesten and Charles Butch Grimes, for your expert presentations.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure seeing you. Always a pleasure seeing you. And once again, Reverend Gerald Smith, please, I want to thank you for presenting our communities this series of resourceful workshops. We hope that this evening's presentation will assist you to become more comfortable discussing these difficult issues with your families and your loved ones. We are not content with these workshops to only diagnose the problems. We are determined to transform the manner in which the Black community behaves regarding wealth building. We've got your future on our minds and hope to provide you with tools and insights that can help chart your way towards an intentional wealth building mode of operation. As the Black community continues to face rampant discrimination based on race, gender, sexual orientation, and religion, we hope that your attendance at these workshops will help you reimagine and energize the manner in which you think about wealth building and financial literacy. We can't think of a worthier pursuit for the Los Angeles Urban League. Please visit our website, laul.org, for more information on the upcoming webinars in this series, and for the information on the Los Angeles Urban League as we celebrate our centennial. We've been here since 1921, and we're getting ready for our next 100 years. So with that, good night, and God bless.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye now.